one of the euphemisms is that, the presidential campaign for 2024 starts today, right? The day after the midterms. Boom. We don't know we pretty much, I think we know who's got the House. We don't know who's got the Senate, but people are already going to start campaigning for president. We also know that a good chunk of the Trump tax cuts that were passed earlier expire right after the next presidential election, which means you've got candidates for president who are going to be falling all over themselves, making some promises about the direction of those tax cuts. But we're also in a scenario where we got some action of enforcing events on the spending side with respect to Medicare and Social Security, and that we really need more revenue in the federal budget. If people don't want to, make dramatic cuts to Social Security and Medicare, we need more revenue. So I'm curious if you can sort of look into your crystal ball, Pete, look ahead at sort of the status of revenues and where you think the direction of the expiring Trump tax cuts are going to go relative to the need, the need for what I say, we need a bigger boat, the need for more revenues. Where you squeeze on a balloon, which way is it going to pop out?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the four of us on this call are among, the few, maybe dozen or 24 people left in Washington who care about reducing the deficit.
Well, if you're worried about inflation and, trillions of dollars in debt, there's a connection there.
Hey, Larry Summers was in the White House last fall, a year ago, telling them about inflation. And what did they do? They threw $1.5 trillion of gasoline onto the fire, with the Inflation Reduction Act. And by the way, at the end of 2025, I don't see any way, no matter what happens to the leadership of this country, that those tax cuts are going to be allowed to expire. They're going to have to continue a good chunk of them. If the Democrats control everything, they'll try and tax the rich. But guess what? There are not that many rich, and you don't raise that much money.
And they couldn't do it last summer. So why are they going to be able to do it, in 2 summers away from now?
There you go.
So if we're going to extend the Trump tax cuts, where else are we going to find new revenue? I mean, do you see a pathway for a bipartisan agreement on a VAT or a carbon tax, or where the heck are we going to find new revenue?
Well, I staffed Al Ullman, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, on his VAT and tried to talk him out of it. And, people say he lost his election because of that. And I don't really believe that. I think Jimmy Carter threw in the towel too early before voters in Oregon turned around and went home. But anyways, it didn't help him. I formulated 2 carbon taxes for Bob Dole back in 79 and 80. Which never saw the light of day. I kid people that they're still in a file cabinet in the Watergate. And, the political will is just not there to raise taxes. So what did we do when Social Security was almost going to run aground? I mean, in early 83, we were a few months away, checks, Social Security checks were going to go out with 80 cents on the dollar in May. Right. And here we were in like February saying, let's think about it. And we got onto the floor, and at the last second, we had a deal, Pat Moynihan, Bob Dole, and they raised the payroll tax, they raised the retirement age, they put in a few tighteners on benefits, and that's what we've lived with ever since 1983. And, right now, the trustees say that Social Security will go bust in 2034. We're going to be running deficits over $1 trillion a year. Public debt is hovering at 100% of GDP. The last time that happened was after World War II in 46. So guess what? No matter what happens with elections, they're going to wait until the last minute and sort of cobble together something like we did in 83.